There are several aspects to these concepts, so much so that the ADB, for example, has 35 different parameters that one needs to consider when they are looking at issues related to inclusive growth. So, I'm very happy that we have three panelists with us from very different directions. We have Professor Xavier, who's an academician, whose interest comes in from the environment dimension, and therefore his discussion will be centered around those issues. So he would be talking about arsenic in water pollution and how social inclusivity is very much one of the solutions to the problem and how things have worked. We then will move on to talk to Mr. Shuman Mukhopadhyay. And Mr. Shuman Mukhopadhyay again comes in from a very different direction because he's with BanglaNatok.com. And he would be talking about how we can harness the wealth of such talent, of such traditions, and use that for inclusive growth. And of course, given his interests and his current, his current interests in the area of entrepreneurship and developing entrepreneurship around this, he would obviously talk a lot about the entrepreneurship angle as well. Finally, of course, we have our own ex-student, our own alumni, Bishan Mukherjee, also with us. And Bishan will be talking about his experiences in the social entrepreneurship domain and how that looks at inclusive growth. So the way we have structured this discussion is we will first have each of the panelists say what they would like to on the particular topic. And this would be followed by maybe a 10 to 15 minute discussion among the various panelists on what they have talked about. And then we will open up the discussion to the floor. And I'm certainly hoping for a very, very lively interaction for all of you. We are very glad that Professor Xavier actually has a presentation to make as part of his discussion. So the panel discussants are sitting on that side, after which the panel discussants will actually move to the front because we want to enjoy your presentation as well rather than look the other way. So over to you, Professor Xavier.
I'm the odd man out to have a panel discussion with a presentation, but I got an exemption. I can link it with a preacher who wanted to use some visuals to make his point. So he used 4 images. First, he had an image of alcohol bottle in which he put a worm. And then he had a bottle with smoke, he put a worm too. The third bottle had chocolate syrup, he put the worm too. And the fourth one had the nutrient soil, in which he put the same perfume. And he asked the audience, mainly the faithful, in a church it's happening. So he asked anybody has understood what is the matter in this analogy that I have shown you. So the last row fellow got up and said, as long as you drink, you smoke, you eat chocolate, you have no worms. So I got an exemption to show you the presentation, not for that, but for this, to explain to you the enigma of sustainability. Because this is the word we hear in summer, isn't it? Those who are not able to read, Shalaki Gorom Rehar Parlamna. I cannot. This is so hot. This is in summer. So I'm not going to talk to you about climate change and explain to you sustainability, because if you hear the answer for the climate change from the person of achieving, you will understand then why I am avoiding the topic.
We in Assam feel very concerned about climate change and its consequences. So, how can you help and guide us to protect our pristine environment?
देखिए आज छोटे-छोटे बालक भी क्लाइमेट चेंज और एनवायरनमेंट चेंज की चर्चा कर रहे हैं। 70, 80, 85, 90 साल के लोग। तो सर्दियों में आप देखेंगे तो अक्सर कहते हैं कि पिछली बार से इस बार सर्दी ज्यादा है। ऐसा कहते हैं ना? एक्चुअली सर्दी ज्यादा नहीं है। उनकी उम्र बढ़ने के कारण उनकी सहने की शक्ति कम हो गई है। वैसे ही ये क्लाइमेट चेंज नहीं हुआ है, हम चेंज हो गए हैं।
So that day I stopped speaking on climate change. And I am not going to talk to you from the IT world to know what is the latest of our IT growth. because IT growth in each one's hand, the latest mobile will tell you. But this word we are used to. We are used to, in your mind's browser, clear, your cache has to be removed. Now delete your history, navigate yourself to a blank web page. This is the language of Ramdev Baba maybe, isn't it? If he is IT professional. Then we are moving on to the maternal world. We are talking about obesity. I'm not taking you to the obesity topic either. They are all multi-million dollar making. But I'm not taking you to the bullet train either. Digital India, Swachh Bharat, waiting for the bullet train to pass. Then he's saying I have to speed up myself. 50 seconds only left. I have to improve my speed before the bullet train passes this way. And the answer here is, hello, how far is the train? Could you please pull the chain? I have. So that is not the story I'm going to take you. I'm not going to take you to the discount world either. You go to Calcutta City anywhere, this is the discount plan. So this is the discount world we are in. Neither I'm taking you to the Patanjali world, which also speaks about sustainability, makes the Gandhi in 2000 rupee note smile. So I'm not taking you either. I'm going to focus upon the enigma of sustainability, being an environmentalist, to water. Water sustainability. Where are we? Okay? So that's the background. I want to give you answer to the quest and questioning you have in your heart. Number one day we were united in this year, meaning 2017. Both the developed and developing came together on the road, wading through Houston and Bombay because of climate change outcome. Water was the uniting point. Okay? When this water united, my question to that enigma, sustainability in water, when India has the highest average, 40 years average for rainfall, highest average for a day, highest average for 24 hours, why should we still struggle for water? 16% of the world population is still not having the global resource of water. So we are living in a dilemma, paradoxes of whether we want our destiny in a paradise or we want to determine our destiny here, which is the first line. Remember how hard it is, not possible. So I take you to this 0.007% story in economy. If we consider as the biggest story of water world, I take you to the success story. I'm not going to focus myself to the gloomy pessimism that every word in the discussion or anywhere we always focus on. I want to be unique. I want to focus on the success story of this 0.007% of global water, where we get soft drink cheaper than water. That is our world, isn't it? So I want to focus on this green growth, mainly focusing on what are the sustainable options powerful in the world, mainly to water. Different parts of the world I have been to deliver, to learn, and that's the time I have opened my ears and eyes to capture some of the options that I am going to share with you positively, nationally and internationally. So this inclusive growth for water, keeping this generation in my mind. They need pure water. United Nations data are there, but then they should have clean water. That's all my option. The last drop, even if they have, it should be pure. So that's the story. The last drop, where is it coming from? I take Maharashtra as my discussion point here for water sustainability story. This particular district within the state Maharashtra, you all remember IPL cricket match got cancelled with the High Court verdict, saying that when your neighbors are not having drinking water, you cannot enjoy a cricket match here, spending 70,000 litres to get a cricket pitch ready. Ethical point, isn't it? So I want to focus on this state, later to Israel, which I visited July 2016, where they get lesser rainfall in particular state, and yet they are green, fertile. How is it possible? That option of optimism I want to focus upon. Think of the last 10 years story in terms of their deficit rainfall. Fine. But then highest number of farmers suicides too. Today in southern part of India, I come from Rameshwaram, we are all celebrating Pongal celebration, where farmers have not got the percentage of bumper crop that they were promised by Monsanto or by any other pesticide company. And yet they have to say, okay, happy Pongal. So that's the story I want to focus on. This particular state, where highest number of farmers suicide within one district, due to lack of water management, not because of lack of rainfall. That's what I want to focus on. That story, positive story. Why should the water bodies be with guns guarded? Think of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu over Kaveri issue, ration, till they are waiting for the verdict. From 1980s onwards they are struggling. If there is a good monsoon, both of them keep quiet. If there is no monsoon, both of them come to the road and fight. Few lives are lost. It is guarded now. Water is a guarded element now. This is of New Delhi Municipal Corporation. This is the story in summer. What happens there? So Latur, water had to be sent last year by train. We are used to seeing the good stain with crude oil, but water was sent to Latur. With that deficit rainfall, what was lacking in us? That's what I want to focus upon. Number one. Number two is we as the reason. When we explode ourselves to beyond the point. Look after the forefathers, 1800 years they took to reach 1 billion mark. The next generation said, "Hum kisi se kam nahi." We achieved it by 13 and 12 and 13. Then they said education has played a role, therefore we are stable. So what happens when we explode in our number will be Mera Bharat Mahan beating China, isn't it? In 2050. We are going to be highest in number. And then why should this occur? Then where will sustainability that we are discussing is going to take place? When we are more, what is supposed to sustain us is disappearing. Do we have an answer? Why should this story occur? Of urbanization, where modern houses are to be built at the cost of the greenery which retains our water sources. This will be our mode of transport because a dil mange mo, isn't it? So when we reach this situation, our water scenario is going to be quite disturbing. And this is the latest data projected that I have, both groundwater and surface water for India. So how can we talk about sustainability? Even in terms of water quality, Pakistan is better standing than India. Quality level, purity level. It's the global data which I collected. So therefore, everybody is trying to search for it underground. So we are going deeper and deeper. These are the facts the latest Hindu publication has done, how we are relying upon. Underground water not enough. If you have a good filter plant, you can get your bottled water. Bottled water is $1 million story. And everybody likes it to hold in the hand than to have a dab, isn't it? Dab is more of plastic type. Having a mineral water, social status is very high. So, I tell you this story of this bottled water. Where are they mainly exploiting the water? The states which are under drought prone, not where surplus prone. West Bengal, Ganges next door, where is mineral water bottle story? There may be, but unregistered plants. But look at where they are excelling. Tamil Nadu has problem water, Andhra has problem for water, Maharashtra has problem water. All the farmers' suicide is number highest here due to lack of water. And that's where the mineral water plants have survived. Where is the sustainability options now? Okay, so I leave you with that question of even the pesticide residues published by the CSE. Sunita Naren will know better. So therefore we think of alternative source which is bottled water. In our case we call as mineral water, but most of the time bottled waters are packaged water, minimum filtration done. For that we pay, and we are competing with the global average of now 28 liters per year, India. If you look at the global level position, this is the one. Then we move other companies to come and suck out our water. The famous story is Plachimada in Kerala, where the farmers went and filed the court case and then they want to say, sue Coca-Cola because they have made us drought prone. Okay, look, we pay and get disease. 15 rupee when you pay, 5 rupee your money loss, 5 rupee you get cancer, 5 rupee you get memory loss. But what have they done? Final damage. They have sucked out our water resources and they give a big campaign because they have CSR facility to campaign as much as possible to say, we suck out 2,000, we replenish it back 20,000. Where? Who can monitor? Under the table, if you give, it is the monitoring done. No other monitoring is done. So, this is the story for Gujarat I am telling you. 16 years, what is the groundwater level going down? 1.81 feet per year. Go let's 11 years, 2000 to 2011, they have lost 8.9 feet per year. It's a research data. So therefore I speak it with passion. Water is my passion. And 30% of India only receives tap water at source. In the kitchen, in your tap, in your bathroom. What happens to the 70%? Where do they rely upon? Either tube well or some other source. And West Bengal, see, all the union territories are highest. Go to the state level, 11.4% only for West Bengal. When Ganges is next door, you are still not getting the tap water. Okay, so my role model is Swamiji, Swami Vivekananda, who said, you have come to the world, leave a mark behind and go. Otherwise, what's the difference between you, the tree and the stone? They too come into existence, they decay. But you are different. So I want to be unique person to promote the cycle opposite. Opposite from self-centered to other-centered, life-centered, and then the whole earth-centered. So that's, as an academician, I try to do to my, not to teach them the price of things, but to speak them value of things. He may be wearing a Tissot watch, but he cannot be at 5:55 in St. Xavier's College for morning BCom class. He doesn't know the value of that 55,000 he has paid. That we give, whether it is environmental education. This is another quotation. To be rich is not what you have in your bank account matters, what is in your heart that matters. Then we can speak about sustainability. Audience doesn't matter. Today you are here 50, 60, fine, doesn't matter. We do not bother about the audience. Quality, time that you have given, that matters. So that's how I want to be unique, to get this chance to present to you, though it is a panel discussion. This gentleman said around 70 years ago, these guys are going to spoil the nation and they are going to even ask us for tax for air and water, and we are paying. Come January 28th, you are going to pay many other things in the bank. But I want to take you for this area. We are taxed in India for air and water. Kejriwal said, 400 liters water I give you per family. After 400, I'll charge you. Delhi government, state government promised in campaigning. Okay, for air we are breathing, proper air, odd number, even number cars to be on the road, and the truck has to come, you have to pay a fine of 1200 rupees, which you sweetly call in euphemism green tax, and then you enter the city. So that's our story. And these are the people blocked to sustainability. Look at any projects. It is CM to minister to MLA to bureaucrat. Finally, what does public gets? 330 paise. That is our story. And that's where our sustainability option has been blocked. And this wisdom came from the Tamil Nadu politician. Look here. They are trying to block the evaporation of the lake water, which is coming as drinking water, with thermocol sheets. Can you believe? Where did they get the wisdom from? Rather, I go to the success story. The success story where the canal water is being blocked out of evaporation direct by solar panels. And I visited Ludhiana last month, and this is the picture I put there. Solar panels, the Silves Canal blocked so that it's safe. Then we can now speak about sustainability and inclusive growth. That's a success story that I want to tell you from the water point of view. I move on to another, governmental norms, both in Gujarat and Rajasthan. Every house should have a rooftop rainwater collection. Then only you get your ration card, ration sugar, everything is linked, not Aadhaar is linked, rainwater is linked. Rainwater linked for success story of water sustainability. And Gujarat, they have found in the last 5 years, 6 feet groundwater has come up because of the roof water harvesting. So that's the success story I want to be hopeful about. In Calcutta, I would like to mention, I will read out for you. I remain in optimism by the college goers in Calcutta. Volunteers take plumbers to neighborhood houses where they offer to take leaking taps mended for free. This is the picture of the leaking taps mended for free. What do? They promote water conservation because look at the big gap in our hole. Plugging the hole matters. 28% of treated water in London is lost in terms of leakages. 20% in New York, 36% in Boston, 15% Sydney, and 43% in India. If this plugging takes place, sustainability automatically comes. This is from South 24 Pagana, where I was doing my arsenic research. Government spent with Indo-Canadian cooperation billions of dollars. Look at the treated water. Where is it going? arsenic-free water treated. Move on to other scenarios. This is in Park Circus area which was picked up. This is in Auckland Square behind Rowden Street. Okay, so this is the situation. If we plug the hole properly, we can at least give 1 billion people each day their water. If Delhi repairs 90% of its leaking, 200 liters per person per day is possible. Treated. Look at the economy. Economy is there, I leave it to you. I am poor in statistics and economics. So I leave on myself to my involvement to the problem in Bengal. This when I was a college going boy. When I
Sir, time is also a scarce resource.
So the well-wishers who have done in the area of arsenic who have contributed too. So this is the health outcome and this is the consequences that we did to promote water conservation in rainwater we can do. And the last option, madam, give me 1 minute, I'll summarize. The last option is this, that where we can, I compare it with Israel, where they get 300 to 400 millimeter rainfall and yet they are fertile. And look here, what kind of crop we are choosing in the Marathwada region, in Maharashtra region. Sugar cane, which needs more water. And what would be our demand here now? So how can we speak about when we do not change our methods of irrigation or agriculture? I move on to Japan. Japan, where they use the hand washing grey water into the flush tank, then flush the toilet. Water is conserved. I move on to Brussels airport when I found something very nice. Waterless urinal, where they gallons of water, 250,000 liter water that year. This 2 years ago when Brussels airport got attacked. So I have visited, there are urinals which are water free and this is something novel I felt. 1 minute, half a minute video ma'am. I'm very time conscious. See where the bottle, you don't use plastic water bottle, you don't buy, but the bottle is kept there for water collection. And the counter says, you look at the counter which says so many plastic bottles you have saved it from the earth. Yes, the counter will change. Easiest option for water sustainability. What else we need? Where should we go for mineral water? So nature holds us in the water. Teaches, floats in water. Nature teaches us how to experience the mother's love, not as a jackfruit, but experiencing of love. We need to reuse wastewater. And thank you. Thank you.
So we can quickly have a rearrangement of 2 chairs out there, then all of us can sit and we can turn the projector off. Thank you so much, Professor Xavier. It was, not many people can inject such a dose of humor into such a morose topic, and it was nice to have an air of optimism with which we can continue with our discussion. So I'm going to now ask Mr. SUSBUS to please talk to us about the other aspect. We've heard something about water sustainability, but more importantly, sustainability and inclusive growth. What culture can do, how can we harness culture towards more inclusivity, towards creating livelihoods and so on. So I'm going to ask Mr. Mukhopadhyay to please touch upon those issues, and of course, being a ruthless timekeeper, I'm going to ask you to restrict yourself to the 7 minutes that we have, and that's why, as you can see, even while the stage is being set, we continue to talk and continue the discussion, just to make sure that we value everybody's time. So,
okay.
So you can sit, stand, whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. That's probably a good stand and speak. Good morning, everyone. So what we represent, Banglanatu.com is the name suggests is little funny. So I will try and explain as to why, what does it stand for. Bangla in Bengal is local. So if you know the drink, the local drink, they call it Bangla, right? So that's local. And Natak is theatre. So basically, because most part of our population, they have not been to formal education. So their attention span is very, very low. The way that we talk and speak, the chalk and talk, they don't follow, they can't follow. 10 to 15 seconds is their attention span. So we felt that theatre is one of the tools that works with them in terms of communication, in terms of skill building, everything. So that's why theatre, so that's Natak. And .com is because we thought that this is something, this as a model can go global. So because that's where .com came. So you may not agree with the explanation, but that is what we believe. As to local, so it is thinking local, so basically using local resources and theater-based tools and going global with the same set of model. Now what we tried over the last 17 years is, first initially we started using theater as a tool for communication. So that communication is primarily development communication. Our model, we are a social enterprise, but we do not take donations. We do not have an ATG, 12-pay, etc., etc. Because we felt that any serious money should be invested in that, and we always felt, we continue to feel that all these ATG, 12-pay are non-serious money. So you don't pursue that. So our model is a grant-based model. We design consulting projects in the social domain, and we work it through, let's say, agencies, state government, central government, international agencies participating through BEADs, etc. And what we do, we believe in community-based scale. So let's say there are communities otherwise very poor in terms of their setup, the location, the the assets that they have, but they are very rich in terms of the intangible cultural heritage. So what the intangible cultural heritage is very safe. It could be three forms that we typically work with. One could be performing art, it could be visual arts, and of course crafts. So theater was used for communication around development. So one of the pictures that you saw a couple of minutes back is, I'll just ask, maybe check with you. Do you have any sense of what is the number of people with live mobile connection in this country? Any guesses? 20 crore? 70 crore. And how many number of people who doesn't have access to a walking toilet? So you saw the guy who is on phone and doing whatever. Yeah. So that's pretty much the same number. I think 77 crore is the number of connections. That's the 2014 data. Maybe it's a little more by the time as we speak. And it's the same number of people, little more, 78.7 million people don't have access to walking toilets. So that's what we're talking about. So that development paradigm. So that's pretty much everywhere. Whether it is Swachhata, whether it is trafficking, whether it is let's say reproductive health. It could be a host of things that you work with in terms of communication. And in design this communication, so you have a team of roughly around 85 people, and they pretty much represent all types of people that you can think of. We have National School of Drama. We have people who are just field coordinators, whose father is probably a rickshaw puller or maybe a butcher in the local market. So that's the kind of audience we have. We of course have few professionals, engineering graduates, etc., etc. So that's the work that we started with in 2000, and then 2007 onward, we started seeing that we are going back to the same set of communities with very similar issues. So let's say if we went to a particular community with the issue of child marriage, we figured out that within 3 years or maybe 2 years, we're going back to this particular community with child labor. So we figured out that there are issues that the community has not been able to resolve because they do not have access to sustainable livelihood. So that's why we started thinking that what is that we could do, because we do not have, our resources are limited. We only understood theater-based skills. We only understood little of culture-based tools. Then we said that if there are communities who are otherwise strong in intangible culture and heritage, can you do something with them? So we started working with them, but come to think of it, we do not have any skills in terms of performing art, in terms of craft, in terms of visual art. So what is that we do with them? So we try and identify, and most of these traditional skills are oral tradition. So if the eldest person or the proponent of that particular skill dies, then the entire knowledge is lost. So that's how we lost most of the art forms. Because if you come to think of it, what was the ecosystem earlier when you had the rajas and the landlords, etc. So because they were working as patrons and they promoted these forms. And unfortunately, these guys did not have any other skill than this performing art or whatever, the traditional skills. So once this ecosystem vanished and the MTVs of the world came in, and there was no patrons, and they pretty much lost it. And the new generation, the next generation people started living these skills because it did not make sense to them. It was not getting them, even it was actually worse than doing a daily labor job. So if you see the maximum number of people we lost to were the kind of daily laborers, etc., etc. So we try and find out if there are any living gurus within the community. If there are living gurus, then we try and organize a training with the living guru on the basics. So that happens for roughly around 4 months. And 4 months, typically 15 days a month, because you have to also be sensitive towards the wage losses, potential wage losses. If you pull out somebody from the community and make them do something that we feel is good, that will be a potential wage loss for them. So we try and work it in such a way that there is not wage loss. And we also did not want to kind of encourage them to get paid for the time that they spend with us in terms of training. We wanted to create some value, so that's how we designed it. And then subsequently there are programs where we met them. So I'll give you an example. I think it's better to give you an example. So when we started working with the performing artists, so the artists, they went through the basic training when they understood some of the how to sing, etc., etc. They had that passion anyway in them, but probably they lost it. The forms become mundane, etc. So we worked with them, and then after that, we figured out that they were very uncomfortable performing to the audience. So the training need was as to how we make them performing in front of the audience. So what we did, there was a performance planned in Delhi, but these guys were very, very nervous. They were not comfortable. So we brought them to Calcutta, and we were wondering what we could necessarily do. So what was innovation component there, maybe? So we made them sit in front of a theatre show by a blind theatre team whom we invited from North Calcutta. So once the play was on, so we see that these people are talking to each other because they felt that if these blind set of people, they could arrange their coordinates so well and perform. So why can't we do that? And that worked as a kind of a motivation for them as they perform. And then we had taken them to experts where they were kind of asked to perform in front of a mic, etc., etc. So this is the kind of journey that we have been following with performing art, with visual art. So it's a basic training, then follow up with some expert intervention based on the need that the participants share. It's not really a top-down approach. So that this is the training. It's a very, very flexible training program, and we work very closely with the guru to suggest that what kind of makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And it's not to claim that this model works everywhere very, very well. We had a mixed success in terms of working with this model, but at present we are working with roughly around 30,000 people. When you say 30,000 people, 30,000 families in West Bengal, primarily in West Bengal, and there are roughly around 2,500 families in Bihar. Now, the other thing that we tried doing is not necessarily only the economic parameters. We did not look at the economic parameters. So what we tried and do, let's say the example that we shared in terms of their attitude to send children to school, their attitude to build toilet, so their attitude to kind of build assets, even participatory development. So we felt that it was not really working. If you tell them to do certain things, it was not really working. So what we started doing, we started each one of these areas. We started implementing a format of rural festival because we can't get everybody to the market, right? All of these guys, they needed exposure to market. So we thought, is there any way that we can bring the market to them? So that's how we designed a cultural product of festival in each one of these rural communities wherever we work. And that has worked wonders. I'll give an example. When we were in Purnia and Bihar, there was a festival going on, and we invited the district magistrate to come. The district magistrate calls me around 12:45. ये जगह कहाँ है? So you can imagine. So the district magistrate has no clue where this village is. So then, fortunately, we kind of guided him, and there was a lot of pressure on the district magistrate because we had a very senior official from senior bureaucrat who is again our alum in IIT. So we kind of used that IIT network to make sure that this guy get pressurized enough to come. So he came, and then when he came, he felt so embarrassed because there was no road. 3.5 kilometers, there was absolutely no road. And the road got constructed in 3.5 months' time. So what I'm trying to say is this tool of rural festival, we did not design it to make it work for the community as such, but the road got constructed. And then all of a sudden the village became a kind of an active spot in the memory of the bureaucracy around. So there are a lot of development effort happened over a period of time, and the community also started participating. So this is the kind of thing that we have been doing for the last 17 years. And now, at present, what we're trying to do is also see if some of these development, let's say, other than the economic benefits, if something can happen in terms of their attitude to, to some of these development questions of education, healthcare, etc. And we see that there is a profound impact over the last 7 years, but particularly last 6 years, that their attitude to send children to school. Earlier, when we started working with some of these communities, it was around 7%. Now, if you go back, because what happened once you started hosting the rural festival, a lot of guests would come in from outside, and they did not, these communities, they did not feel uncomfortable in front of us when their children were probably roaming around naked. But if we had, or probably respond that this guy doesn't go to school. But if you are a visitor and you ask them, that, you are an artist, so where does this is your son or daughter, whatever, and where does he or she goes? I think that work, that hit the pride significantly. So what we also did, what I'm trying to say is, we wanted to kind of get their dignity back in terms of the livelihood that they can carry out. And that has worked wonders in terms of their pride is what is helping them to take ownership of their life and the development process. So that is what is our theory or our model of inclusive growth. As to how you see, for this particular skill, they need to acquire the skill to get out of poverty, but somebody else need to pay for it. Unfortunately, they cannot pay for it. As you and I probably would have paid for the skills that we need or acquired to be able to get to where you and I are, but they cannot. So we wanted to kind of create a model around that. If there are sponsors who would be keen to pay for that particular skill building based on the mandate that they have. It could be poverty alleviation, it could be skill building, it could be entrepreneurship development, etc. Because come to think of it, what we also do, they are the bottomest part of the supply chain. We try and move them up the value chain so that they start getting little more realistic value of their skills. So that's the model that we have been working with. It's not that it's a perfect model, but our results in terms of the number of lives that it has impacted, the amount of development initiative that people started taking have been very, very significant. So that is what I want to kind of present to you. And if you have any questions, we'll take it later. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's amazing to realize what livelihoods can do. And very nicely, as you put it, it brings the dignity back to people. And I think that is so important in this day and age when we talk about Aadhaar card and inclusion and so on and so forth. We sometimes forget why inclusion. And the why inclusion is because we are all human beings. And we all need to be treated as human beings. And in that context, we've talked about one type of empowerment, which is through culture, through livelihoods. The other is just through basic nutrition. So in that context, I'm going to ask Mr. Mukherjee to share his thoughts. You want the microphone? Or?
No, I think my voice
He's used to the IIM Calcutta tradition of shouting, so we'll go with that.
Yeah. So, thank you all of you. I will start with a small anecdote. Given we were talking about access to proper toilets. A couple of years back, I was in a village in Kuti in Jharkhand, and one of my field coordinators takes me to a home. The interesting bit about this home is, or rather the interesting bit about that village is, every house has a toilet that is made from the Pradhan Mantri Yojana. The other side of the story is, no one uses it. What has happened is, the toilets are the one that are made in a year and a half. They are the newest part of the house. I've seen homes where they have put plants on the Indian toilets and they have put gods in it. That has become their temple. That is the social mindset that we are trying to fight here. For us to make people understand why a proper toilet is required, you have to go further down. You have to make them understand why proper education is required. If you need why proper education is required, you need to go further down. Do they have a full tummy? If they do not have a full course meal in a day, you will not be able to make anyone understand any social change. We have been working in this domain of health, nutrition, education, protection for the last 40 years. CINI has been. So I'm a partner to CINI as well. I've been working with them for about 3.5 years. So the major challenge is how to make sure these people at the grassroots level have enough in their pockets so that they can have a proper square meal every day. If they have that proper square meal every day, everything follows on as a virtuous cycle. So our challenge and our experience for the last 3 years have been inclusive growth, and as ma'am mentioned, there are 35 parameters to it. A simple parameter of providing sustainable livelihood. How do we do that? I come from these two. So we had a problem statement and we have another problem statement. How can we marry the two? Our problem statement was, why is nutrition so costly? We figured out there is no reason for it. The companies have an oligopolistic nature. For people who do not understand oligopolistic nature, in nutrition you will find only 3 to 4 companies, maybe 5 now. But 2 of them will control 80 to 90% of the market space. Given they control that, they have that much control on the market, they can price at whatever point they want to, whatever be the lacuna in the system. So if we could come at a price point that is cheaper than the competitive market and be profitable, we can work with these community people so that they are the co-creators instead of being beneficiaries on the projects that we were running for the last 40 years. We had a product which is called Nutrimix, where we tackle malnutrition and now into proper nutrition. And instead of remanufacturing and trying to becoming a next P&G or IIM or whatnot, even at a small scale, Patanjali maybe, we have simplified the process. Some of you might have heard of the term origami. Origami is a Japanese art of keeping small plants. Instead of having a full-fledged factory, which is a 200, 300, we have simplified it to a 220 kg factory. What happens now is, we have a village where there are 15 community women, most of them, all of them economically marginalized, most of them socially marginalized, who are working there. It has a two-pronged benefit. The raw materials that are being used in nutrition, and mostly raw materials that their husbands or family members will produce at the fields. I'm sorry, I get thirsty a lot. Their husbands will use at the field. So these family members who are not getting the price efficiency of their products and had to sell to middlemen, now sell to the family members who are working in these small, localized, decentralized village units. Given that, there's a price benefit for both the farmers and their wives who are working in this village. Producing something that has a fixed price. Instead of producing more rice, the price of rice going down, they are producing a product which is Nutrimix, which is fixed with the government or other societies. And we are providing that security to them. If you produce our product, we will ensure you have a handsome profitability. What in turn happens is those 15 women, being 15 families working at a village level, and other 15 to 20 odd people working on that entire supply chain. So you have a zero-mile product, which is a closed economic transaction, where people are generating the money there and keeping it there. As Professor Xavier was pointing out, Coca-Cola taking out the water and not replenishing back. You are taking the product from those soil, you're using it, and you're selling it back on that community only. Your cycle of loop is so small that it's a plus-sum game rather than a zero-sum game. And that is when these women start seeing 5 to 6 to 7 to 8,000 rupees a month. The moment they see that, they start getting food on the table. The moment they start getting food on the table, now the children are on the aspirational zone, but they will go to schools. The moment they have full plate on the table, they now know what government programs to apply for. And these are the support and the qualities that we try building into them. And finally, we talk about inclusive growth. We talk about micro-level entrepreneurs, these women who will be the flag bearer in their community. We will tackle two problems, in nutrition and health. Someone else is tackling a problem in culture. So we use these people to disseminate such ideas, where 15 people will be working in this, 15 people maybe for Schumann, 15 people with Professor Xavier, so that entire village level will become a holistic micro-ecosystem which will be self-sustaining in nature. And that, we believe, is the only way forward. I'll keep it at that.
Thank you so much. It's the various dimensions of inclusivity and of sustainability that the panelists have brought forward to us. And if I were to try and find one link, considering the suggestions that Professor Xavier made, the kind of interventions that Mr. Mukhopadhyay and Mr. Mukherjee are involved in, then that common thread for me is probably using the market system. And using the market system is essentially, if you look, the way the government is also going. It's also talking about enabling people and letting people do things on their own and so on. Now, so one of the questions, I'll take two issues that I want the panelists to maybe discuss a little bit before we throw the questions open to the audience. And one of the issues are essentially then related to that, which is, given this use of market or market forces to foster inclusive growth, how do we address the concern of a deteriorating social fabric across not only India but worldwide, resulting in an increasingly defrayed social safety net? So, I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on how we bridge that market force issue to something where there are certain public goods that are provided by society. How do we deal with that difference? And the other issue is, of course, we were having a very interesting discussion before the real panel discussion, which was on understanding whether business and society looks at the concept of sustainability differently. Again, going with the theme of the conference. And if it does, what is the implication on inclusive growth? If it doesn't, what is the implication on inclusive growth? So these would be the two broad questions that I would like to throw open to all my panelists. So any one of you can jump in with your ideas. And once we have a short discussion on that, we'll open it up to the audience.
I will go with the second question.
Sure. Any questions?
So,
we were having a very, very animated debate on that just before we entered here. So it'd be good to continue that discussion.
Business and society, in terms of the sustainability quest, are they really conflicting? There is no hypothesis. This is something which is based on the interaction that we have had over the last couple of years and working on entrepreneurship, etc. So business, come to think of it, what are the sustainability quest for business? Is continuously lower your cost, because for business, if you come to think of it, either you enhance value or you reduce cost. There is nothing else that you can do, right? So that's all your innovation, technology, everything is pretty much around that. So continue to reduce your cost of your resources or processes and have more and new customers. So that's pretty much it for sustainability of businesses. And come to think of it, what is society? For society to be able to stay or maybe grow, strive, etc., you need a dignified, free human being. So what does it mean? It's a very loaded statement. So I would try and maybe demystify it. So let's say what I would need as a society. Need access to affordable education, maybe primary education, primary healthcare, maybe food. Clean air and water, freedom of choices, safety, security, law and order, what else? Maybe, maybe here a few more. Let's say access to meaningful and dignified job opportunities, because meaningful jobs are getting scarce by the day. You have fantastic designations, but actually what you do is pretty much whatever. So I think that's what is the society needs to be able to sustain itself. Now, and there are quite a few conflicts. That's what I think. You may differ with it. So let's say one is, if I say meaningful, dignified job opportunities. Now, the quest for corporations are to de-skill all their jobs, right? Because they hate bargaining power of. I don't want to give an impression that I'm a socialist or whatever, but end of the day, for a corporation to work seamlessly, they wouldn't want too much of this. So they are trying to de-skill, and that's happening using information technology, now probably with artificial intelligence. It will happen at a very, very fast pace, right? So all the job roles of 2016, the research says that 40% of it would vanish by 2030, right? So de-skilling is one such area, and this is happening very, very fast. Now, if de-skilling is happening, and you are talking about society to exist and sustain and grow, it needs meaningful jobs. So these two are not really married, they're not really talking to each other. And then you are talking about clean water, clean let's say food, access to primary education, etc., etc. All of them would need certain resources, but constant pressure on resources by the businesses, because they want to reduce their cost of doing everything. So if you want to reduce cost of doing everything, then what happens is do not pay the fair economic price for a lot of things. So let's give an example. If I need to compete with because we have been working with these Sal leaf plates, right? These Sal leaf plates, the best quality would probably be available at 1.5 rupees in a market. Now the thermocol plates are available maybe 1 rupee 25 paise or 1 rupee. And they are very comfortable, convenient for anybody to handle. Now it's an unfair competition because what is happening, the environmental cost, etc., etc. So the thermocol plate guy is actually not paying a lot of prices because of regulatory problems. And businesses again hate regulations, and society to sustain need regulations. So these are some of the things that I wanted to kind of share. Not really a hypothesis, but these are based on the experience that we have over the last few years.
I can speak on the marketability issue. Market is the order of the day. I will give you one example of the bottled water. This is 500 ml. I don't know how much in the airport it costs. I think 50 rupee or 40 rupee. But if you go back into the intricacies of the manufacturing till it is being sold by a Modi Dokan or the Pan Dokan fellow, the product cost is, including packaging, transportation, everything, is 2 rupee 80 paise. The rest, where does it go? So when we say marketability, markets are playing a very vital role, but does the same market take about environmental sustainability? That is my question.
Sorry. My take is somewhat on a longer term and somewhat on a different side. 10-15 years ago, we were not talking about carbon emissions. Now we talk about carbon emissions. Maybe not applicable in India, maybe will be applicable in 10-15 years time. We are talking about automation and how it will take away jobs, which is absolutely true. It will take away jobs. But much like how carbon emissions are coming into place, how social innovations are coming into place, at a certain point of time, I personally believe that there will be certain strictures that will come into play where the growth has to be holistic, where there has to be a marriage between business and society, and we have to look at it from all the points that Roman had pointed out. Having told that, there are spaces where this can happen. We talk about market innovations and market pricing. We have to talk about public policies as well. How our public policies are structured. Is it for the better? Is it for the worse? Do we need less? Do we need more? We can cite the example of US where they had gone less and now they're going more. Does the business only work on lower costs? Not. A lot of businesses are moving back to US at a higher cost because of quality of product. And the entire furniture industry, which used to be here in the sub-South Asian countries, has moved back to the European and the US market because of the quality of product. The problem that we face is 70% below poverty line and de-skilled labor. We are not upskilling them enough. And that is, I believe, where a lot of focus should go in. It may have started with a few government initiatives, it has started with a few CSR activities, but we have to take more initiative in trying to upskill and reskill our generation and the generation next to it, because population is one of the best things we can have. And given the first statement, the decaying social fabric, again, the moment we start talking about public policies, the decaying social fabric and how I understand the market dynamics, people will at a point of time will start paying for enhancing the social structure of the country. Maybe through taxes, maybe through other means. But those cycles will keep on happening. It has happened in the Indian history for the last 2,000 years. You will have the Raja Maharajas who were tyrants, and then you will have the kings and the princes who were good. And this is a cycle, if you see through the entire civilization of the country, has happened on a cyclical term. It might be falling down, it might be going up, the society corrects itself every quantum of period. And maybe that is something we need to trust and believe in. Yes, I agree, there are divergent forces. Who are the divergent forces? I'm not going into it, but I'm sure there are convergent forces who are maybe not that strong at play, who will come into that system and motion, and maybe business will drive that. To drive its own growth, they will have to drive that. And again, I will start on talking on economics and the public policy of it. Maybe some aspects of that, but in general, a fair price strategy and tactic will come into play. And I think I'm throwing a lot of jargons.
No, thank you so much. As you can see, there is a clear I wouldn't even say divergence of opinion, as much as say there are multiple ideas as to how therefore we can deal with the kind of problems that Professor Xavier threw at us right at the beginning. When there are multiple options, well, maybe we should use them all. But then the question comes, do we really have the time? Considering the severity of the issue, can we really experiment with multiple options? Should we move to specific ways of trying to tackle social inclusion? Should we look at some things which have worked as solutions for inclusive growth? Or should we experiment with new ones? Or should we leave it to business and social cycles to sort problems out? Those are the kind of questions we are, kind of grappling with, and we now want to open this up to the audience. If you want to ask any of the panelists any specific questions, yes, please go ahead, ma'am. You want the microphone? It's up to you. Yes, please.
Good afternoon to you all.
Please introduce yourself.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I'm Dr. Shruti Rana, and I'm from Delhi. And it was a very insightful panel discussion. And the thing which a lot of insights came, and the question which I want to ask, as Sir has mentioned, that marrying business and society. And it's been, that's what I've heard, that's what I think it's actually a very difficult thing, because we talk about consumerism here. And if we talk about automobile industry, I belong to Delhi, and this air pollution thing has actually bothered us for so many years. If we talk about automobile industry, one of the biggest contributors to GDP, one of the biggest contributors to vehicular pollution, government is trying to build bicycle tracks, which we discussed, but nobody, it's the same thing about toilets. You're building toilets, government has built, but then, they're making something out of it. Same bicycle tracks are there, but no one wanting to ride a bicycle there. So I think it zeroes down to a mindful consumption is what I was coming to. If I talk about my perspective, I was working in a group where wherever flight tickets we used to take for air traveling, it used to come. This is the carbon footprint which you have generated by using this one flight of yours. But 5 years down the line, it never occurred to us. How does it matter? Why? Now, since now there's been more awareness, maybe you've done research, maybe you're working towards it. So this is one thing which actually bothers us, intrigues us. So my question to you that how important is this again in the inclusion when you talk about consumers? Isn't it very important for a consumer to be aware of his contribution to it? We talk about the sustainable thing, sustainable practice. And how to generate that mindful consumption pattern in a consumer, how to put that thing in the thought process, and isn't it a difficult road ahead? It looks like. So that's one thing which I want. Thank you.
We have another question at the back. Can you please go ahead and get the microphone? What we'll do is we'll try and accumulate 3 or 4 questions and try and address them together, given the paucity of time.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, this is not a question. I have an observation to make.
So, please introduce yourself and then.
Myself, Shobhajit Ghosh. I am from Kolkata itself. And it's an observation, and I'd like to take off Professor Xavier in that. Sir, there is a saying in Bible that God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So naturally, we can very well expect that need of the people and greed of the corporates, they are not going to go away. So requirement for the water is going to be there. And from your presentation, we saw that the pace at which groundwater is depleting is very alarming. So, sir, I have came across certain projects that were being run by Israel as well as Saudi Arabia. What they do, they convert the seawater into usable water. So, don't you think that it can be an intermediary sort of solution where we can provide such type of plants to sea adjoining states so that the usable water can be obtained from the seawater and people can use it. In the meantime, we can give Mother Nature enough time so that groundwater can replenish and greenery will be there, so everybody is happy. So what's your take?
Yes, please.
My name is Dr. Moksha. I'm working in joint director in the Department of MSME, Government of West Bengal. My question is to Mr. Bishan Mukherjee. As your this thing is leading to some setting up of micro enterprises, and we are talking a lot about sustainability. So my specific question is, what model you are following? Is there any buyback system of what they are producing? Because you said 15 members of the SAG group, if they are getting 5,000 salary, so it is coming almost 1 lakh, I think at least 1 lakh. So how do you do that basically? Because what our experience is that why I am telling this micro enterprise, their main lacking is they cannot market whatever they produce. That is the main question.
Yes.
I am Harsha Rani and I represent National Institute of Fashion Technology. My question is on when we are talking about bringing business and society on a similar track about sustainability and inclusive growth, and since we are discussing this in an academic institute of higher management, which is entrusted with the responsibility of producing so-called future managers or ecopreneurs. My question is, what can be the role of such kind of institutions in changing the consumer psyche and changing the consumer mindset? That is one. And second is not just the role of an academic institution, but also as a general public. When we talk about, because most of the panelists talked about public policy. So even if there are policies in this regard, what we see is that it is not being trickled down to the bottom line. So what can be done as a consumer, as a general public, what can be our part in bringing that?
Bottom line or bottom of the pyramid?
Sorry?
Bottom line or bottom of the pyramid?
Bottom of the pyramid.
So we'll take one last question and then we'll... Yes.
I'm Viju from Embrace Corporation. I have an observation and a question too. Observation is about, you talked about artificial intelligence and machine learning and all these things, de-skilling people. But when you're looking at inclusion, are you looking at those 10-15% of society which has skills, or you're looking at bottom 70 or 80% who needs to be skilled? So those technologies, when they're used for reducing cost, is not really affecting the majority of the country. So are we comparing two different things? That's the observation that I have to your artificial intelligence point. And you talked about your programs that you do. You talk to people who are experts in a particular area, and you try to build that thing. Have you ever thought of looking at, or you might be doing it, looking at capturing those things and archiving it for prosperity so that the future generations, so that it does die, it's not lost to the society?
Great. So let me quickly summarize the questions and then we will ask Professor Xavier to address the questions first because he's in a hurry, he has to leave. So what I have is, probably 3 sets of questions. One set is related to what can we do specifically from the point of view of, say, consumers. And in that context, how do I generate mindful consumption, whether as an academician or otherwise? How do I change consumer psyche? And what would its role be in inclusive growth? And the question is addressed to any of you, so any of us can address that. The other question, and in that context, of course, it's also whether academics have a role in changing that and in trying to make public policy more effective. The other line of question is, in terms of setting up micro enterprises, the biggest challenge being, how do I sell the product? The market itself can be a huge barrier, what could be done, so some enablers there. And finally, there was a question about whether technology could be used as an intermittent solution for addressing the water scarcity issue and water regeneration issue. So the sustainable use of water, if you will. So those were the three broad questions. The third question, of course, was targeted straight at you, sir. So if you could address that and the other two questions, quickly, then we can talk to
I'll stand up and answer. My thought process works when I stand up. Okay. It's regarding if you go.
In other words, I'm not thinking.
No. If you go back to the last 3 budgets, what is the amount kept aside for desalination plants? I had shown 2 budget amount somewhere when I presented it in Philadelphia. It is possible, viable, but hard to maintain that matters. Salinity you cannot play up with for just one day and then leave it. It has to be properly maintained. It involves millions of dollars to be invested upon. Australia, where do they get their water from? But they have the heart to maintain it because they are serious about quality. Here, it remains often in the inauguration level. Everybody is there, photo opportunities over. After that, simple example, I have been to the rural most areas of Bengal where arsenic filters have been implemented on the day it was inaugurated with that new tube well because it was emitting arsenic. But after that you have the filtrate to be cleansed. Simple, AquaGuard machines at our home needs a proper, what you call backwashing. Otherwise, your germs still come into, even though you invested on 16,000 rupees to get that AquaGuard machine. So that is the problem. It's not possible. It is possible, feasible, viable, but maintainability is not in our blood. That is where we face this option, not still. They studied in Marina Beach. They want to set up. Chidambaram, when he was a finance minister, he allotted a certain amount, but I think it is still in paper. I don't know who will build the tent. Thank you. I have to leave. My principal is waiting.
Thank you
so
so
I
much.
thought of 11:30 to join him. So thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely.
On the bottom line as well, you see, when we are talking about Saudi Arabia and we are talking about Israel, these are net deficit water countries. India is not a net deficit water country. We have a lot of river water which goes down to the oceans. Desalination plants are very expensive. The bigger project that is being undertaken is linking of the rivers, which is far cheaper. So we have to also understand what to implement and what not to. Because oceans of water does not necessarily mean it will be at a price which will be affordable to the common public. So we have to understand what we want to do there as well. The entire canal system and the river network interconnectivity has only started for the Kaveri issue. Because entire South India you have 4 rivers. Whereas in North India you have so many rivers that everything flows down the drain. So we have to also pick and choose our battles properly. Not because some country has invested in some technology, we have to do that as well. Those are consequences and there are problems why they have done such a thing.
So if you want to address the other question directly to you, which
Yeah.
was on setting
On
up
the
micro
micro
enterprises, and the third issue which is related to changing the consumer mindset.
So for us, what we realize is marketing and sales is a major challenge for the micro entrepreneurs. And that is where our forte is. We work with the government. Mostly. The government requires some certain things, be it on the quality side, be it on the testing side, be it on the deployment side, be it on time in full side. These are something that are very hard to drive down at a micro level. So what we do is we ensure the entire contract for the government. What in turn we do is we work with those women in those regions only. Say if we work in Bhirbhum, we have 5 such units in Bhirbhum. But these community women will manufacture nutrients, will give it to us, we'll test for the quality, we'll repack the product in a 3-layer 80-micron packaging, and then we'll ship it to the government. How does this help? When I'm talking about a village entity, you also have to understand the vagaries of it. There is one marriage in that village, everyone stops working for 15-20 days. The government will not stop requiring the product. See, what we do is we not only we ensure on the same location that those women are making the product, we ensure the quality of it. And in case they falter for 10-15 days, we have a centralized plant which will take care of that mismatching gap. So what then it does is it's a hub and spoke model where we have a centralized plant and decentralized plant. We take care of the quality and the functions and make sure they do not have to bother about the sales. But having said all that, part of our pitch is also to the district administration, because if you give us the work, we will create micro entrepreneurs at your place. So if you give us the work, you are giving the work in turn to the people whom we will train and scale up on your behalf. So it's a two-way street. Am I making sense? No. Yeah. So I go to the district, I go to a district administration and say, we will do this. We have the entire forte of proper nutrition, of support, after-sales service, whatnot. But what we will also do is, we will create micro entrepreneurs at your place. They will not be reporting to you, they will be reporting to us. Because we have that skill set, you don't. If you trust us enough, you will trust us with the order. We do not want to create micro entrepreneurs first. You try the product for 2 months, you like it, then we will talk about expanding that entire system and then incorporating micro entrepreneurs. Because we cannot also incorporate micro entrepreneurs into our system, and after 6 months the district administration says, no, we don't need it. So those vagaries we clear out first, and then slowly we start moving into this such projects.
To address the last question, and then we need to wind up because Ravindra has actually left the room saying time. So.
Yes. So quick one. I will also respond to his question. I think market has created all that we have today in terms of the mess, and market alone will have a solution. Really, because that's again, I mean, there's no hypothesis. But see, come to think of it, if you remember, I said that businesses will need new and more demand for its products, so new markets, right? So now you are again talking about artificial intelligence, productivity, etc., eating away into productive jobs. So what is happening if you really look at the Gini coefficient, etc., the inequalities are increasing. So the top 10, top 6 richest person in the world has more wealth than the 53% at the bottom of the pyramid. So I'm not saying that these statistics kind of standalone make sense, but what it is doing is, see, if I have 100 rupees in my pocket, I have 20 different products competing for that whatever disposable money that I have. I think that is what will trigger some kind of change, which is what is happening. I'm sure some of you probably are aware of the concept of basic income. That's kind of all over the place, right? Elon Musk is probably one of the biggest proponent of that, because end of the day, see, market, if you remember when Henry Ford introduced robots, the gentleman who was the trade union leader, Henry Ford told him that, see, the robot has come, there's a welding robot line. So the question that the gentleman asked him, Irving, I think John, so he asked him, so will you make the robot buy your car? I think that is where the conflict will happen at some point in time. It is already happening. Just come to think of it, markets have shrunk. There's no doubt about it. People are talking about it. Markets are not working. This is not working. That is not working. Because unfortunately, the overall money available in terms of customers' pocket, I think that is what will flip at some point in time. Now, whether customer education will take priority in terms of making the right set of choices, they're very difficult to happen. We are in the communication world. We do social communication. I can vouch that it's very difficult to make people understand. And even if they understand, to make those choices, because at the end of the day, there are convenience, there are price point, there are so many other things. It's very frustrating to work with the solutions that are alternative, because they're alternative, so that's the problem. It has to be mainstream, and mainstreaming will only happen when businesses start taking interest in solving social problems, and that is the paradigm. I think it has not been attacked, but I'm sure Unilever is trying in his own way. There are many others who will probably try in the future. I think market will be an answer. In terms of how will it happen, I don't know, but it will surely happen, because at the end of the day, if you don't have customers, new customers coming into the market, or your existing customers growing, your future of business is dead. So that's my answer to very high level, but the nuts and bolts probably will work out in the next few years. And to your point, sir, you're absolutely right. So what we have been doing, we are not only digitizing the knowledge, we also bring in, so let's say, if I give an example, this is the Baul music with the mystics in rural Bengal. So the communities have been practicing, but what we figured out, they only had around 22 poems, so all the verses they have been singing. So it's beyond that they did not know. So what we did, we actually worked with not only the musicians in India, even we went to Bangladesh and requested. So we collated those and now have published a book with 183 verses. So what it does, it not only gives you an opportunity to know what is already available, it also allows you to look at what the other, so your universe of music all of a sudden enhances significantly, and digitization of course is. And to your point of the 40%, are we really bothered? I'm not saying that. See, end of the day, formal sector jobs are dead anyway across the globe. So if formal sector jobs are dead, there are people going through these institutions, picking up skills, where will they go? So that's one problem. And the places where they are expected to go, you are eating away 40% of those roles. I'm not talking about those informal sector roles anyway. So mine as an enterprise, our concern is the bottom of the pyramid, where people, the communities reach in that. So they may not necessarily get impacted by that, but their market would get impacted significantly if those 40% jobs are away, because those are potential customers for some of them. So that way, I think directly or indirectly, it does impact the kind of work that we are talking about and the kind of stakeholder that we will be working with.
Thank you so much. I think it's nice to always end on a note of optimism, and I think that's the way this has worked. Two quick takeaways here. One was, you talked about, the marriage between business and society and how difficult that is. And my rejoinder to that is, well, marriage between man and woman, most of it is successful. So hey, there is some hope as far as that goes. On the other point, what could academics do in terms of improving the situation? Well, I hope this discussion has been a step in that direction, which is not to provide answers, but to raise as many questions as possible and leave the audience far more confused than when they started. So if academics land up doing that to both policymakers, students and anybody else in the broad ecosystem, they've probably achieved what they were supposed to do. So I do hope we've raised enough questions and enough confusion, and yet left you optimistic about the whole idea of how sustainability and inclusive growth would actually, at the end of the day, help us find meaning. And towards that quest, towards finding meaning, I hope we find the rest of the conference useful. Thank you so much. Sorry for taking up more time than we were supposed to.